Welcome to Pig Pods. We give you actionable insight and stories behind real-life success wherever you go. Here are your hosts, Angelos and Mo.
So hi guys, welcome to Pig Pod. My name's Angelos and my co-host today is...
Hello, it's Mo.
Hello Mo.
Hello, Angelos.
Right, today we're going to be talking about the temptation of a pay rise, or the fallacy of a pay rise.
Controversial.
Indeed, very controversial. So Mo, why do you think we want to talk about a pay rise in maybe not necessarily the best way?
Yeah, well, I think, it can be a positive thing and it can be a negative thing. And I think probably before we start, we should probably frame, what we're talking about. Obviously, our podcast, The Pig Pod, is very much about entrepreneurship, success, business, and well, actually success in the broadest sense of the word, not necessarily in entrepreneurship and business. But so I think we need to be clear that we're not talking about pay rises for, well-deserving jobs that need that probably need more money as the cost of living goes up. So we're talking about things like police, men and women, nurses, doctors. I think, it's very clear that people that have a real passion for their job and do roles like that should be entitled to pay rises and actually see them as a really good thing. So I think we'll put those kind of people aside, and in the context of what we're looking at, does having a pay rise incentivize behaviour that isn't necessarily aligned with where you want to be in your life?
So for example, this could be for someone who's about to, or is a little bit unsure about when is the best time to jump from full-time employment to being self-employed. Or someone who's just made that leap, so they can perhaps look back and relate to this. So perhaps a pay rise of maybe getting £1,000 or £2,000 or maybe even £5,000 or £10,000, that could be a very tempting thing because it can help pay for a cheeky Nando's every week, as opposed to looking at the bigger picture where although you are being rewarded but with a little bit of extra money, obviously there's tax to pay on top of that as well, but how much are you leaving on the table by not taking that leap and creating your own business?
Absolutely. I think it's very much about the opportunity cost of taking that pay rise and maybe putting off what you want to do. It's not always a bad thing. I think if you are being offered a pay rise, if you're being given a pay rise, it's in some way recognition of the value that you're providing to a company. And I think the way that people should view that is actually that they are providing a really good service to the company and to the employer, that actually they should have confidence that if they transferred that and took it outside, not necessarily in direct competition with who they're being employed by, but they can bring a sufficient amount of value into the world to be able to earn a similar amount of money. They just need to work out the how of exactly what that looks like. But I think definitely, and I've experienced this myself because I used to work at HSBC, that as a contractor, that it can definitely put off what you really want to do because you do get pay rises, and I think it must happen all the time because it's it's human nature to think actually more money, I'm going to have more security, I'm going to have more ability to I'm going to have more residual money left to be able to do the things I want to do, and buy stuff which a lot of people like, and it makes you feel good and releases hormones in your body that make you feel good when you buy things. So why wouldn't it be a good thing?
And also it's not necessarily always to do with money. It could be a promotion. That's perhaps true. You're to become a manager or
so
even a director.
Status part of it as well.
It's all very well being rewarded financially, but there's also the status, like you said, Mo. I mean, for example, I can relate in my old job. There was always the temptation, never formally offered, but always the temptation of perhaps if you play your cards right, you knuckle down, there could be the promotion to becoming maybe a senior manager or even higher. And you think, well, that could be a very tempting target. That will really motivate you. And it did. It motivated me for many years because you thought, well, I'll always be rewarded. But at the end of the day, Mo, what I find is that if you have a clear vision, no matter what comes your way, whether it's knockbacks or even the opposite, the carrot stick approach, even if you have loads of carrots coming your way, if your vision is so clear, it doesn't matter what comes in your way, what temptations, you'll always strive to make sure that you hit your goal.
And I think that's a really important point that you just raised. I think you were talking about having a very clear objective and a clear goal, and I think when people don't have that, that's when they're actually just performing to someone else's plan, and actually someone else's. So your boss's thought might be that actually they're going to bring you up and they're going to promote you through a certain path, but you're not actually following your own course unless that's something that you really want to do. That's not you dictating your own future. That's someone else saying, okay, well, I think you should go up this way. And so I think people who want to be successful really need to think about writing their own future and not, being a part of what someone else is writing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's not always a bad thing, absolutely not, to be employed. Some people are very happy with it, and we need hard-working people.
Yeah.
But for those who want to do something for themselves, for those who want to take control of their future, to control the earnings that they can potentially make, I think that a pay rise is going to pale in significance when it comes to seeing the bigger picture.
I think it's also difficult when you get older and when you have more responsibilities. If you've got school fees, you've got kids, you've got holidays you need to pay for, you've got a mortgage, you've got a car, all of these things that you have as you get older and you get more responsibility in family. Those decisions aren't as easy to make as maybe they were for us when we kind of left our full-time jobs to go self-employed.
I mean, I'm 33 now. I know you're a similar age. I see my...
hang on. hang on. Similar age.
Come on.
So I'm 30. Just let's get it on.
30. Okay,
let's get it on the record.
If we're counting 2-3 years, no problem. No problem.
2 or 3 years between friends. What's that?
Well, it's nothing really, is it? So yeah, I'm 33. Mo is 30.
Considerably younger.
Considerably young. Not a similar age at all. Completely different. But what I found is that looking back now, I finished full-time employment when I was 31.
Yeah.
I see my 20s, especially from 23 onwards, as the period of my life where I had to work extremely hard, where I had to not necessarily go out and do all the cool things or buy the nice cars, go on all the nice holidays, but I had a certain amount of freedom because I didn't have any children. My girlfriends at the time, they kind of saw me as this obsessed property investor, and I was, property was number one compared to them. I hate to say it like that, but you see my priorities at the time. But when I would speak to other people who are in their 40s, etc., where their risk profile has come right down, because I could play it to the edge, it wasn't a problem because I didn't have much to lose. Whereas they have a home, they have a mortgage, they have a family, they have credit cards, they have car payments, and all this other baggage that you accumulate. So the temptation of a pay rise, although to me at that time was like, whatever, for example, without sounding too glib about it, for someone who's in their 40s where it would pay for that extra car payment, it's very, very important. So perhaps that is where they get derailed from. Let's say they want to create this amazing invention, or they have this great service in their mind. That's what knocks them off course because they're so weighed down with all these commitments.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really sad to think of the, like you say, the inventions that will never be made, or the great products that might come to the market. And I suppose the takeaway for that is actually that if you are in a position that you don't have a lot of financial responsibilities and things like that, you should just go for it. You have to just give it a go. You've got plenty of time to make money. What you haven't got is an infinite amount of time, and that's really, time is the only asset that you've got. So once you've gone through that period of your life when you don't have responsibilities, you're not going to be able to get that back. So just go for it. And I think I never kind of tend to dwell on or regret things that I've done or haven't done. But if I'd taken the leap earlier and got into property sooner, then I'll be have an even bigger business than I have now. So. But saying that, you never know what path you would have been on, and the stuff that I learnt through working for a certain period of time in the corporate world actually has helped. So, it's a tricky one.
Yeah, I mean, everything moulds you into who you are today. So, the time that you exit your full-time employment, all the skills that you would have learnt, all the things that you have seen that you wouldn't necessarily employ in your business. So everything molds you into who you are today. So I never look back and go, God, if only I did it a little bit sooner. Because everything happens... I wouldn't say for a reason, but everything happens to shape you into who you are today. I mean, for example, even if you are in your 40s, 50s, 60s even, and you have this great idea, look at Ray Kroc and all these other older people, it's all relative.
Colonel Sanders.
Good old Colonel Sanders. I mean, they started at a very late age, in their 50s, and look how successful they've done. The one thing do you know what the saddest 2 words are in the English language, Mo?
Is it I wish?
If only.
If only.
I don't want to lay on my deathbed and all the dreams and ambitions, they surround your bed. I've seen the cartoon where basically they say, what happened? Why didn't you allow us to break through? So if you have a great invention, you have a great idea, if you think that you can improve the world in a certain way, go for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I think they there's various things online about polls that they do of people that are, that are on their deathbed, and the things they say, and it's always that they have regrets for things that they didn't do, and it's never like, oh, I wish I hadn't done what I'd done. It was, I wish I did what I never did in the first place.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's really
just to be
important.
clear, we're not advocating going in and handing in your notice tomorrow, or if you get a pay rise tomorrow, well done. Shove it up your ass, mate. I'll give you a bloody pay rise.
That's the thing. I think there's a level of practicality and pragmatism that you have to take. I think probably what we're talking about, and maybe it's actually a separate podcast around goal setting and objective setting and things like that, is just to think about the context at which you're getting that pay rise, and where you want to go, and use it as a springboard if that's what you want to do. If you do want to get out of your job, then use that extra little bit of pay that you're getting, put it aside as some savings, so that when you do take the leap, you've got a safety net to use if your business doesn't take off as quickly, which it never does, by the way. So that's probably another podcast in itself.
And having enough capital to survive on for at least 6 months, it takes a lot of time, especially with the rise of the cost of living.
Absolutely. When I quit my role, I was technically self-employed as a contractor, but it was effectively similar to a job. I thought I had 12 months of living costs, and it lasted me about 8 or 9 months. So it's never as much as you think. So it's good to be conservative on that side.
So say thank you for the pay rise.
Yep, graciously accept it.
Is that it? Perhaps ask your boss. Is there nothing more?
Yeah, and I think the other thing is, in that context, ask for the pay rise.
Yeah.
If you feel that you've been doing a job that's over and above the remit of your of what you're doing at the moment. This is going to get me in trouble, because all of our guys that are in the team that work with us are going to come and ask now. But there's a level at which you're employed to do a job. If you're one of my old bosses said to me, to get a pay rise, what you need to do is you need to do the job above the one you're being paid for a year, to show you can do it, and then that makes you worthy of the thing.
Yeah.
I think that's really good, because the commitment to show that you're willing to do something over and above what you're being paid for and what your remit is, that shows the kind of person that you want to have in your company. So I really like that.
I mean, one of the things I had to do in one of my jobs is basically ask for a pay rise, but I didn't frame it as a pay rise, because the company at the time, they weren't offering pay rises, because we're in the recession, we're all in it together, remember. But I approached the manager at the time, and I asked her, I know you're not offering pay rises, but if you look at what I'm doing now compared to what my job role and description was when I first started, it's so different, and I have so much more responsibility. So don't see it as a pay rise, see it as a job reevaluation.
That's it. That's exactly it. And it's completely about fair exchange. So it's got to be that service and that value that you're providing to the company. What's the fair exchange for that? And that is dictated by yourself. It's dictated by the market. It's dictated by competitors. It's dictated by the government and external forces that are coming in.
Or even the offer you've had from another company.
Absolutely. Yeah. But actually, that company might be in a position that it can pay you more than the company you're in, because they're more efficient, or they're at a bigger scale. Big multinational companies can generally afford to pay more than a startup, and you might have someone that's doing the same job in both, but being paid double. But then there's different. You've got to look at it as the total package as well. Like, what's the lifestyle, what's the work-life balance benefits, and what are the benefits and things like that. So I think if you always got to think about that exchange, fair exchange of value.
And also, your boss may not necessarily appreciate all the work you do, or may not even know about it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So sometimes you have to make them aware of what you're doing. And I know it's a very English thing to be quiet about these things, especially when it comes to pay, but sometimes you need to be your own PR. You need to let people know, I've done this, I've done this.
Your own propaganda machine.
Exactly. And then I
think that was an email about a pay rise that you're due, Angelos.
Or it's one of my staff members saying, actually,
I'm just listening.
I don't think you appreciate what I do. We'll talk about that later, Jackie. Thank you. Anyway, but it's very important to get as much money as you can.
Yeah.
Especially if you're building up your reserve, because we will talk about this in a future podcast, because when you make that leap, you will need a lot more capital than what you think you do. So it's very important to build up the reserves. So I guess in summary, Mo, yes, a pay rise, if it's offered, take it.
Yeah.
Be grateful and be thankful.
And if it's not offered, ask for it.
And if it's not offered, ask for it. But don't let it sidetrack you from your ultimate goal. What is your
100%.
goal? Is that to improve the world by offering
Yeah.
a new invention, new service, etc., or maybe something completely different? Don't let it sidetrack you.
And I think I really like just referencing back to the last podcast was around, what did you call the whiteboard that you had? Mission.
Operation Freedom.
Operation Freedom, which was where, just for everyone listening, Operation Freedom was where Angelos was planning to get out of his day job and do property and investing full time. And that was basically a whiteboard that had the date that you were leaving and the plan, the milestones to get there. Is that right?
Yeah. So basically, it was crystallised by me writing it down.
Yeah.
Because every morning and every night I go to sleep, it's the first and last thing I would see. And from that, I would spur off and write down, what would I do in 2 years' time?
Yeah.
What do I need to do in a year's time? What do I need to do in 6 months?
Yeah.
Next month, next week, tomorrow? And from there, very quickly, you crystallise a solid plan.
Yeah. And you put it out to the universe.
Yeah, put it out to the universe.
And it came back.
So.
But no, I think that's really important. I think why I wanted to bring that up was it's about the pay rise. If you'd been offered a pay rise at that time when you were on that journey to Operation Freedom, you would have taken it, but you would have said, actually, if it was to go in a direction that wasn't aligned with where I wanted to be ultimately in 2 years, I'm not going to take that, because I'd rather do what I'm doing, and it means I'm going to get to where I want to be.
For example, if there was a caveat, you must work for us for X amount of time, or you must do this, or you pay back the pay
or you couldn't do your property on the side, or you had to work hours that meant you couldn't physically do property and investing on the side.
Or whatever combination you may face in your journey. It's very important to stick to your vision and be very clear and have it written down, because I find half the battle is writing the damn thing down. When I speak to different business owners, you'd be surprised the amount of people that don't write down their vision, even well-established businesses. Yeah. So if the boss doesn't know his own vision, how the employee's going to... But that's another podcast.
Absolutely, it certainly is, Brilliant.
All right, well, thanks very much, guys, for listening. If you're driving, I hope we haven't put you to sleep. Please wake up.
Keep your eyes on the road.
But we would appreciate any feedback, any comments. Please leave them.
And a subscribe, maybe?
And even a subscribe. It doesn't.
Not if you're driving, though.
No, definitely not. It doesn't cost you much for a subscribe, and we really do appreciate it. So you'll find us at www.pig.network, and we look forward to speaking to you soon. Thanks very much.
Cheers.
You've been listening to Pig Pods. Click subscribe for more incredible content. More details can be found at www.pig.network.